Yeah. The following is a production of Sharkflight Media. Sharkflight Media. Sharkflight Media. Sharkflight Media.
From mechs to mages or agents to argonauts, this is the world of Chris Kennedy Publishing. This is the CKP Future Books Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the August edition of Future Books. Thanks for coming back this month. If you get a chance, please rate us on Apple Podcasts. It's the best way to move us up in the list and make us visible to other people who are looking for science fiction podcasts. So if you like Future Books, if you can take a minute and go to Apple Books if you can go to Apple Podcasts and give us a good rating, that will make us more visible to people and increase the number of people who listen to the podcast. That being said, as usual, we have our famous and intrepid editor, Chris Kennedy, with us again this month, and we're going to talk about the 4 books we're releasing this month in the month of August. Thank you, Chris, for coming and being on the podcast again this month.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to be here. And I'll tell you a quick story. It's kind of funny. I'm about to go to Canada, and last time we were there, I was in a grocery store, and I was in the checkout line, and the cash register person looked at me, and she said, "You look familiar. Do I know you?" And I said, well, I don't know. I'm not from here. You know, I live in North Carolina, down in the States. And she said, "Your face is really familiar. You know, what's your name?" And I said, "Chris Kennedy." And she's like, "Oh my God, I read your books."
Oh, Lord.
And I didn't have my phone with me. It was out in the car. So I ran back out to the car, and actually the phone was back at the house. And I said, "Hey, Sheila, can I borrow your phone a second?" And she's like, "What for?" And I said, "Because the cash register lady wants a picture with me." And she's like, "You've got to be kidding me." And it's like, no, she recognized me, and Sheila was just couldn't believe it.
Well, I need to revise my intro. When we welcome Chris Kennedy, internationally known as an editor and publishing of Chris Kennedy Books. Thank you for coming, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here.
So this month we have 4 books being released. We have, let's see, I don't think any of our books are brand new series, but they're all series that are really, really good. We start the month of August with book number 4 in the Blood and Armor series. This is a series that was, the first book was written by Bill Fawcett, and since that time, Casey Moores has kind of taken lead in this series. It's a new series with Chris Kennedy Publishing. This is book 4, and it has been really fun to read. It's near science fiction. Think of Daniel Suarez or Michael Crichton. All the technology that is used in the book is currently available, and these authors are extrapolating what could be done if you put this technology together. It's a military book. It is a technological book, and it's a book about being a small country surrounded by superpowers. This is one of my favorite books in the CKP pantheon, and I have been enjoying the heck out of it. Can you tell us a little bit about book 4?
Sure, absolutely, and you're absolutely right. This is kind of a multi-genre book in that, it's near future science fiction. It's also a thriller. It's also, several, there's some not much political intrigue, but you also get some of that. You get some, you got mercenaries running around. You got all sorts of things in here, which makes it really, really neat. But at the end of the day, this whole series is about defending what you love best. Defending home and your spouse, and, doing the right things for the people that love you. And I really I love this series. The 4th book continues what we had in the first 3. We now have the addition of Melissa Olthoff, who brings her own particular, gut-wrenching stuff, to really get you into the book. And I think that Casey and Melissa did just a phenomenal job bringing this one in. Really looking forward to getting it out.
After the first book in the series, this may be my favorite book in the series so far. You put two of the CKP All-Stars together on this book, and it really shows. I tell people when I'm talking about this book, imagine a book that was written, co-authored by Tom Clancy and Michael Crichton. You're pretty close.
Well, it's funny, and they made me look good because they told me they were doing it after they'd already started. They were about halfway through it. They said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to do book 4 together," and I'm like, "Sure, okay, that sounds great." So
it sounds like them too.
Yeah, they make me look smart, but I found out about it secondhand almost.
So that's August the 2nd. That's a great way to start off our month of August. And then on August 9th, we have the second book in the Outer Reaches series. Those of you that read Iconic, if you noticed on the cover, we had 2 authors on the cover. It was pretty interesting because one of the authors, I believe, was in Australia and the other author was in France. They worked together to write the book. And then to once again break the mold, the second book in the series has been written by one of the 2 authors, not the 2 of them together. So tell us a little bit about QUAESTOR.
Sure, absolutely. This book is by Piatt Alden, and it follows the Jabari character mostly as he interacts with new people. I don't want to give away too much, but he's looking to try and free the proselyte people, and he's got somebody new on his radar that he's trying to bring into the fold. However, that person has a job to do. He and his squad have been grabbed by a QUAESTOR, which is kind of the almost a Judge Dredd-like figure, where they're judge, jury, executioner, and she's going after a system governor who is pretty bad. And, she has to bring him in or bring him down. So Sato, the new character, the squad leader, is helping her. And he has some very hard choices to make. And oh, by the way, the bad guys are way more than what they're expecting.
Wow. Well, I know Iconic was a great book. I haven't had a chance to read this one yet, but I can't wait to get my hands on it. I think this is going to be a great series, and both of these authors, both Pete and AJ, are good people and write a great book. So we certainly recommend on August 9th that our listeners pick up QUAESTOR.
Absolutely. You're not going to want to miss this one.
And then on August the 16th, longtime author with CKP, David Allen Jones, who has written in several of the CKP anthologies. He has, shown up in a lot of the series on at CKP. He ends his Salvage title universe run, his trilogy, with Salvage Race. Tell us a little bit about it, Chris.
Absolutely. And longtime CKP readers will recognize, like you said, he's got a book in the Four Horsemen universe. He's got stories in the Fallen World anthologies. So he's definitely been, to many of the corners of CKPdom. And this really is more his bread and butter, though, because he's already got 2 novels in Salvage, plus some short stories. And this will conclude the trilogy that he has, in the Salvage title universe. He certainly may be back. And he's already talking about, what he wants to do next. I know he's interested in writing another Four Horsemen book to take the unit that he had in there and show a little bit more about them.
Yeah, he wrote Scholarship, didn't he?
He did, which was kind of the YA series, and we've had a lot of people ask, okay, what came next with them? So I know he wants to do that, but for now, this is going to complete the trilogy in the Salvage title universe of the characters that he's been bringing along, and get them to where they're ready for the next thing. I already have the next thing in my box that Nick Steverson and Jason Cordova wrote together. There are 2 books coming that is going to set the stage for, the series right now is called The Coalition. Well, if you have a coalition, you must have a coalition to do something. And there are bad things coming, and everybody in the galaxy is going to have to rally around to save themselves. So we're right about there. That'll be starting here real soon.
I tell you, when the Four Horsemen universe started, you caught lightning in a bottle, and then it's amazing that you were able to do that twice with both the Four Horsemen universe and the Salvage title universe. Both of those universes those series of books would have been a great find for any publishing company, but to be able to grab both of them, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Very fortunate to have great folks that write great books.
It is. And speaking of which, we're going to end up the month of August with Paul Piatt, one of our favorite CKP authors. He writes the Abner Fortis books. He coined one of our favorite words, Denley. And we are now on, I can't believe it, because I was there at book 1. We are now on Abner Fortis book 11. Tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. And Denley stands for Do It, Not Like It, which is the International Space Marines credo. Somebody gives you an order, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. And there are many times, in most people's daily life where they have to do something that they may not like a whole lot, but, it has to get done, and they're the people that has to do it. So it's a pretty handy word once you get right down to it. Okay, so war criminal. Hey, guess what? Abner Fortis, he's in trouble again. I know that's hard to believe, but there you go. He's the only person I know that doesn't like being in the frying pan because the fire is so much more fun. I'm pretty sure he hops out of the frying pan just so that he can get a better suntan. Yeah. And that's what you're getting. This is Abner Fortis at Abner Fortis's best. Everything that you've come to know and love about Abner, you're going to get here again.
Well, Paul is another outstanding find for CKP. His books have all sold well. It's a great series, and I'm happy for him. I will say that I know that 2 of these series for sure have been printed on our overseas imprint. So, they're not only liked here in the U.S., but they're liked overseas also.
Oh, absolutely. They've done really well in Germany. The Germans love, good mill sci-fi, and that's what this is. So they've done real well over there as well.
Well, I know you have a heart out today because you're about to travel to foreign countries. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up unless you have anything else that you want to mention or go over before we stop today. Anything else from you?
No, I'm pretty good. I would just remind everybody that Factory Con's coming up here the first weekend in November. It's November 1st to 3rd with our fishing day on October 31st. So starting to be, that's starting to be the, I always talk about the closest alligator to the canoe. It's not quite there yet, but, if you haven't made your reservations, we'd love to see you here in the mighty metropolis of Coinjock, North Carolina. I'm hearing that there may be a special guest coming. I can't say who yet, but it's very possible that we're going to have somebody that once the name gets out, everyone's going to want to come. And so I'm saying, don't wait. Get your reservations now.
Yes. For those that aren't familiar, CKP hosts a yearly retreat / convention in a campground in Coinjot, North Carolina. It's a way for our fans to be able to meet and talk to their authors. It's very low key. It's probably
even get a chance to beat them in cornhole.
Yes, exactly right. It's probably the easiest convention to be able to interact with authors on a one-on-one basis in the country. So if you have any interest in going to the Factory Con, you can go to our Facebook pages and find out more information.
Absolutely. There's a Factory Con Facebook page. So if you just search Factory Con, spelled just the way you expect, FACTORYCON, you'll get there.
All right. And so with no further ado, we will call this the month of August with our editor, and we will be back again next month to go over the September releases. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to the first half of the podcast. And for our author interview this month, we are honored to have Casey Moores and Melissa Olthoff, two of our favorite writers. Guys, I can't tell you how happy I am for both of you. Casey in particular, having Bill Fawcett start off such a wonderful series and then kind of put it in your hands to shepherd is amazing. And as I call you, Melissa, the big overachiever, have to get everything done and do such a great job. Having you join Casey in this last book, Forlorn Hope, is amazing. I can see your fingerprints all over it. Guys, welcome, and tell me, Casey, how you got Melissa involved with this.
Getting Melissa involved, well, I will say that Melissa is my pay-it-forward author, and that girl Casey Azell, got me writing a few years back. And as I started writing, I wanted other people to read my things before it got to my writer circle of friends who would, have their very pointed, specific, following the author rules guidance. I just wanted to get it out to somebody to see, hey, do you enjoy reading this? And Melissa's one of the first people I wrote. Do I have a story here? It's a little bit of a story here, but it's just so I started sending some of the things I was writing to Melissa and a few other people first, and Melissa got back to me with some great feedback, helped me out early on, and then not too long after, she started sending me things that she had written, and I immediately was like, wow, this is already better than anything I write, so definitely you need to get yourself out there, start connecting to the people that I know, putting in for some of these open calls for anthologies, things like that, and her career has blossomed, I think, faster than mine in a lot of ways, and she's doing awesome. And how she got into this series specifically, actually, Melissa, do you want to take that one?
So
or
first
I'll just
of all, I swear I did not bribe Casey to say any of those things, and I'll PayPal you Venmo after we're done here. Okay. Anyways, so
well, we know where he's coming from, so he may be a little altered.
So at LibertyCon last year, which is one of the best mid-sized conventions, and my personal favorite, it's out in Chattanooga every June. If you're a newbie, a new first-time author, then Bill Fawcett runs these little mentoring sessions. And I signed up for it because I'm like, cool, I could use some mentoring. And Bill Fawcett's been around a long time. He has a lot of experience. Let's see what I can learn from him. And I got very fortunate in that his next appointment didn't show up. So I got 2 slots back to back. And we ended up, right? So I told him what I got now. We were actually just talking military stuff because, he's had family members who served, and, he's big on the history. And I mentioned that I was reading Casey's books for the Blood and Armor series. And Bill just kind of looks at me at the end. He's like, I need a female author that could write Nisty's POV, that could work with Casey on that. Is that something that might interest you? And when I was done picking my jaw up off the floor, I said, yes, that is incredibly interesting. Let's see what Casey thinks. And I guess that's just kind of how it happened. I went to a reading afterwards, and I opened the door, and there's Bill Fawcett and Casey Moores and Chris Kennedy standing there going, yes, you need to work on this with him. And I'm like, okay, cool.
That's great. And I will tell you the backstory between Nisty and Filippi, it adds a whole different facet to the series of books. It's like adding, an extra flavor to a really good spaghetti sauce. It has enhanced the experience. And I felt like I saw some of your fingerprints in that relationship.
I would like to say for the record that I was going to behave. There was going to be no romance. I agreed. And then Bill very kindly ordered me. And
I was told early on that there would be no romance because it was, British soldiers fighting valiantly, defending their nation, and that there didn't need to be a romance story in there.
Well, I don't come from a military background. I come from a first responder background. But I will say, while there were no romantic interests in the fire service, everybody was way too hairy. When you are, and maybe you can back me up here, Casey, when you are involved with somebody in a life or death circumstance on a day-to-day basis, you have to love the people you're working with. You don't have to like them, but you have to love them because you are putting yourself in harm's way to do the job. So cutting any romance, whether it's
stand that I would trust my life with, that I love to death.
That's exactly right. And cutting romance completely out of military science fiction, whether it's a physical romance or just a romance on the level of two people loving each other because of shared experience, would not be believable anyway.
Agreed.
Yeah, especially in this context. This part of the Kurdish military in this series is very heavily integrated because it's entirely merit-based, and the suits kind of negate any physicality differences. So this is a great part. This is a great place where gender and all those things don't actually matter for the operation of the God combat suit.
Yeah, we're assuming that everybody has read the first books and know what we're talking about. When I tell people, "Hey, you need to read the Blood and Armor books," I explain it to them as, imagine if Michael Crichton and Tom Clancy had a book together. You've got that. The way Crichton used to take elements of science that was already there and extrapolate what you could do with them, and Clancy's military background and his ability to do good research, I think exemplifies what the Blood and Armor series is. Do you guys agree, or how would you explain it?
So I have a Discord channel. Me and my one of my other co-authors, Nick Severson, have a Discord channel for our space.
Yeah, that unknown author that you're trying to help into writing.
Right. Nothing to do with that there, but one of our readers asked me to sell him on the series in 9 words or less. I'm like, all right, I got this. Powered armor, epic battles, made our editor cry.
That does it. Casey, you got anything to say?
Well, obviously Bill knows a lot of people, and he's pushed this book around, and so he's gotten some quotes from some much better known authors, some very large authors in the industry. And one of them specifically said that it was like reading Tom Clancy. I won't add the other disclaimer in there. You can look up the books and see what the rest of what she said, but it was, to a certain level, it is that same level of sort of political conflict, I guess. All the way from the political levels to the strategic down to the tactical levels, you're seeing that combat and that conflict at all of those levels, just like you would see in a Clancy novel.
I also have mentioned before that this particular series of books is the closest thing to what's going on politically in the world today that I think Chris Kennedy Publishing has ever done. Would you agree?
I constantly got messages from my editor saying, Casey, you were supposed to be writing fiction. I'm going to say one of the scenes that I wrote in No Fail, one of the more uncomfortable scenes I've written, essentially an IRGC commander who's ordered to fire on a crowd. I wrote that scene wondering if I had taken it too far, if I had written a little bit too intensely, if I had written it too realistically. And then that evening, I and this is the only time, like in recent memory, I've actually seen an article like this, but that evening I saw an article about how the IRGC had actually done something a lot worse than what I'd written.
Melissa, are you going to continue writing some more books that have Misty in it, or is this a one-off for you?
Honestly, I will co-write anything with Casey anytime because I have had a blast doing that. I mean, he's, like you said, he's basically my Obi-Wan, right? Like, yeah. He brought me into it, and everything I know, I've at least learned in part from him. So I will co-write with him anytime, and I will co-write Blood and Armor with him anytime.
Oh, that's great. And Casey, are there more Blood and Armor books coming?
Yes. This is definitely a long-running series. These are the first 4. Taking a break right now while both Melissa and I write some other things. But yes, there is a long-term plan. Bill started this knowing that he had a very long-term plan to continue expanding the Kurdish Republic. These first 4 books, Never Again, No Fail, and No Further, and Forlorn Hope, releasing next week. All of these, releasing on the 2nd of August, depending on when you publish this, but these are essentially the Kurdish Republic defending itself. And that is the purpose, but what defense means is going to evolve.
Oh, that's great.
Right now they're defending their borders, they're defending their people, but, some people have said that the best defense is a good offense, and at some point they're going to have to expand their borders in order to make sure that their people can remain safe. So it's going to sort of spiral action.
Since you just mentioned that, what does the rest of 2024 and early 2025 look like for Casey as far as Casey the writer?
Right now, I'm going back and pulling something from the novel Unshackled that I co-wrote with Jamie Ibsen, and we're finally starting to write the Buff Orpington series. We will, for real, we'll see where that goes, see where that leads. I've also been offered what might be a major step up to my writing career. I don't want to talk too much about that right now, but it's essentially being, for now, a project manager, potentially a co-writer on a forthcoming long-running series by a much larger name.
Oh, that's great. So just as a question, when you write the Buff Orpington series, is he going to be referring to the TV show he watches about the 3 chipmunks and how that guides his direction?
Well, we've just worked out a way to put the chipmunks back into it. It is a little different. So we weren't planning on it, but they've worked their way back into the Buff Orpington series. As that's just a little bit. I guess the word is meta these days.
Y'all had thought of this already?
Well, I mean, we had thought of it, but it was just like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And we finally figured out how it completely works, and it's going to be hilarious.
I can't wait to read it.
But it's also going to be sort of like, it's going to be similar to the tone of Unshackled, and that it's going to be a little bit back and forth between really serious and hilarious. Gall darn hilarious. Sorry.
Man, I thought I'd be the one to mess that up.
Sort of on a roller coaster of, hilarity to seriousness. But we're also going to jump genres as it develops. Hopefully we don't lose too many readers doing this, but the first series will actually be somewhat post-apocalyptic. You're going to see Buff and his team doing a Mission Impossible James Bond mission, and it's going to evolve quickly into a post-apocalyptic setting that they've got to try and figure out how to survive and then maybe resolve. And then, like I said, at the end of every series, it is going to change in different ways to put them in a completely different genre with the same team, and it's going to completely developing that way.
I can't wait. I want to see the urban fantasy one.
I'm very excited for it, and we're making progress. I did my first 5,000 word day a couple weeks ago, writing the first book. So we'll see where that goes.
And Melissa, what does the rest of this year and early next year look like for you so far?
Insane. I have got one book that actually Casey has right now that we'll see what happens with that one. I don't want to say too much about it without jinxing it, but I actually just wrote the first 1,000 words in Space Hyenas book 4 with Nick Steverson.
Oh boy.
Yep. That one will be titled Capers and Chaos. We're hoping to have that out towards the end of the year. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to be working on Salvage Bunny 4 later on this year. I have a secret project with another author that's a little bit bigger than me that I can't talk about yet, but it's like mill sci-fi awesomeness. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I have my first urban fantasy novel coming out midway through September. It's in Marisa Wolf and Bill Webb's Valkyries Hit World series. So,
oh boy.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite series. I'm glad to see that it's making a resurgence again.
Oh, we're very, very excited about it. It's so much fun.
And when you talk to your friend Nick, you tell him that he wrote one of the best short stories I have ever read in the last anthology.
Hero 42.
Oh my God, he about ripped my heart out. And I read the version before parts were cut out, which actually really ripped my heart out. That was some of the best writing I think he's ever done.
It was dark. It was like I read,
there was no redeeming value at all to it, but it tore me up.
I needed some emotional support alcohol after reading that story. Then that bastard made me read it twice.
Oh,
it was great. So good. So good. And he's working on, you'd be happy to know he's working on the follow-on novel for the Four Horsemen that kind of carries on that short story.
I'm looking really forward to it. So, Casey, tell our listeners where they can keep up with you and how they know what's coming out when, social media-wise.
All right. Social media-wise, you can follow me on Facebook as Casey Morris Writer. You can follow me on Instagram as Casey Moops. And then, obviously, I've got an Amazon author page. That's really the best way to find everything that I've done. And then you can follow me on BookBub as well. And I actually kind of begged for that one because I could use some more BookBub followers. But those are the four major places to follow me as an author in general. And then there's my website, www.caseymoores.net.
This is off the subject, but you brought up a good thing. Tell the people what BookBub is. That is a great resource for avid readers.
It's really just another place for authors to create a profile, list all the books that they have, and advertise. But I think it's the most user-friendly and concise, and it's the one that hasn't gotten gummed up as much as, say, Amazon and Goodreads have in various ways.
Yeah.
So
I think it gives really good,
best, most straightforward way to follow an author.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good way to get a feed in your email of books that you might be interested in to get you started on a series that maybe you've never heard of. And a lot of times they're deeply discounted so that you can get a start on a series to find out if you like it without investing a ton of money. Melissa, social media wise, how can people keep track of you?
So I am all over the place nowadays. I've got my website, melissaolthoff.net. At some point, I will get .com too, so I go both ways. I am on Facebook with just Melissa Olthoff. My posts are public, so you don't even have to friend me. You can follow me there. You can follow me on my author page. I am on Twitter. I am also on Instagram as Salvage Bunny because that name wasn't taken and I had to take it. I think that's all the major ones, though. And, of course, Amazon, ChrisKennedyPublishing.com, and yeah.
And to finish the interview off, August 2nd, Forlorn Hope, book 4 in the Blood and Armor series. Guys, if you're into near future science fiction and hard science fiction, this is a great series. Don't cut yourself short. Buy this book. It is really good. Buy the other 3 so you can catch up if you haven't read them. Melissa, Casey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
As always.
You've been listening to the CKP Future Books podcast with host Randall Willis. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving it a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. Show likes and channel subscriptions are also much appreciated on the CKP YouTube channel. Finally, if you'd like to know more about this author or others on the CKP roster, visit ChrisKennedyPublishing.com. Thanks for listening to the CKP Future Books podcast. We'll see you next time.